say, done program management, product management, and definitely Agile and Scrum. I have worked on this for a few years now. Done some certifications also in this area. That's pretty much about me. So I wanted to ask of the participants we have here. I think how many do we have as of now? Maybe 14. Uh, has anybody already experience of working in Agile and Scrum, or is everybody new? What is the experience level of the people who are participating here in Agile and Scrum?
I have experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. If others don't have, that's fine. I just wanted to know so that we can cover the topic accordingly. Okay. Right. Anyway, we're going to start with basics. I mean, cover basics and touch few of the maybe a little advanced topics as well, like story pointing and all. I have last few slides, which could be a little complex, but that's fine. We'll start with basics, understand that, and then go there. Okay. Even if you have experience, yeah, if you have experience, please add in. Okay. If you have something else to say or add to it, add to the topic, please do so. Don't hesitate. If you don't have, that's fine. Okay. So let me start with a question, right? So if you hear of Agile, right, what do you, can somebody define what is Agile? Any answer is fine. Okay. Don't and let's make it interactive. Well, I mean, I always say this. Okay. I don't want to be the only person speaking. I want people to interact. If you have questions, ask me. I'm going to ask questions along the way so that we make it interactive and make it more useful. Anybody can define what is Agile? You can say, okay, you unmute and say rather than typing in the chat box.
Yeah, it's
Agile
basically, yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying Agile is basically a set of practices and methodologies, used in software development.
Okay, great. Set of basically principles and practices you're telling, right? Principles.
Yeah.
And yeah, great. Good
Right.
answer. That's the easiest and the best answer. Anybody else has any other answer? Yeah, somebody was trying to say something, right? Another person.
Agile means able to move quickly and easily.
Oh, easy also, is it? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Good answer. Yeah, quickly, definitely. Easily, yeah. I mean, to some extent, yes, right. But it's not easy to start with, at least, right? So always when you kind of start off on something, right? Because most of us have been worked in waterfall, right? We're going to talk about waterfall also, right? But kind of switching to Agile is not that easy in the beginning. Okay. When you do the switch, it's very difficult. But once you get used to it, it becomes pretty easy. Yeah, as you said, that's right. Any other answer?
Flexible and adaptable to changes quickly.
Yeah. Okay, sure. Yeah, flexibility and adaptability. Yes, inspect and adapt, right? Yeah, great. I think that's good. Okay, so we will get started. We will try to answer what it is. Okay, in the coming slides, right? I think whatever you said is right. Okay, it's all part of Agile. It's a set of practices and principles, definitely, right? And it has flexibility, inspect and adapt, right? Iterative, right? Development. All of that is Agile. Okay. So what we're going to learn, right? Objectives. What is Agile? So we're going to understand what Agile means. Why do we use Agile, right? Or waterfall, right? What is the reason for that, right? Why did we choose Agile, right? So one of the latest stats says that at least around 70% people are claiming to be using Agile now, okay, in the project management, in the IT area, okay. Maybe they are not fully into Agile. Maybe some of them are Agile or just transitioning, but around 70% people are claiming that they are trying to do Agile, okay. They're moving away from other development methodologies and moving towards Agile. Okay, Agile. It could be Scrum, it could be Kanban, lot of Agile methodologies. Okay, Scrum is one of the most famous one, but there are a lot more other frameworks which use Agile. Okay, and also we're going to define what is Scrum and then get deep into Scrum. Okay, what is Scrum framework, right? What are the different roles? What are the different ceremonies we have in Scrum? So we're going to see all of that in pretty detail. Okay. If you have questions, please unmute and ask anytime. Okay, you don't have to wait till the end, right? As we are going, you can ask questions, but please mute yourself if you don't have questions. Okay, if you have a question, you can unmute and ask anytime. Okay, Sure, let's go. Okay, so there are two type of control process. Okay, there is a reason why I'm introducing these two terms here. Okay, there is one called defined process. There is called empirical process. Okay, so defined is controlled and coordinated. It's a process where there are steps defined to do. Okay, there are steps defined. If you just follow that steps and if you do that in that controlled environment, you know what to expect. Okay, whereas empirical process is a process where it's very transparent and you can inspect and adapt. Okay, as you start building that process, you can see that, right, there is a lot of transparency and you can inspect and adapt as you go. Okay, so one simple example we can give here is if you're baking a cake, right, so it is a defined process, right? You have to mix all the ingredients, right? Put the right dough, put the right egg, and whatever it is, right? And once you do that, so you put it in oven, you can't do much about it, right? It's a controlled and coordinate process, right? You cannot inspect and adapt there. Whereas if you're cooking biryani, right? Biryani is like empirical process, right? So where you have the option of looking at it, right? Okay, whether the rice is cooked properly, whether the meat is cooked properly, right? So all of that you can inspect, and if you need to put more masala, if you need to put more salt, right, whatever, right, you have the chance of inspecting and adapting as you go because there is transparency there. Okay, whereas baking a cake, you have the option of doing whatever you want to do in the beginning, but after that, once you put it in the oven, you can't do much of it. Okay, so that's the high level difference between a defined process and an empirical process. Okay, so if you look at the process control, so left side is the defined. Okay, you have the known steps that you have to follow, and it's simple compared to the empirical process. Okay, so waterfall is uh, aligned towards defined process, whereas agile is kind of going towards empirical process. Here you have a lot of unknowns, right? A lot of innovation involved. It's very complex. Okay, that's why we try to adapt agile. Okay, you're gonna see what is agile in the later slides. We're just trying to introduce empirical process here and a defined process. Okay, because empirical process will be used in Scrum. Okay, Scrum is based on all the empirical process. Transparency, inspect, and adapt is all Scrum. Okay. So there is a new type of development technique that is being used and that is used in Agile. Okay, it's called iterative and incremental development, right? So where you develop a system through repeated cycles, right? The iterations, right? It could be what you call sprint, or you call as anything, right? I mean, it's called iterations as well, right? In safe world, it's called iterations. In Scrum world, it's called sprints. Okay, where you develop through different cycles. Okay, it could be 1 week to 4 weeks, right? We're gonna see all of that in later slides, right? And it's through incremental, right? If you see this picture, right? So it's in increments, it's getting developed, right? Here it's through iterations, it's getting developed, right? So what you develop through iterations and increments, this is also agile. Okay. So why agile, right? Why do we need to use agile? Okay, we need to understand what are the types of projects we are dealing with. Okay, there are simple, complicated, complex, and there is a fourth category which we don't want to go to. Okay, the simple or projects which is very simple. Maybe you're doing some enhancement, right? Maybe you're doing something that you already done so many times. Okay, so you use best practices there. Okay, so here the requirements are very simple. It's close to agreement, less complexity, right? You don't have many stakeholders, right? So here you can use waterfall also. It's okay. You can use agile also definitely. Okay. But there are different projects called complicated projects, right? Here there's more technicality involved, right? So there are a lot of requirements. There are more stakeholders. But the thing is that, right, here this is a project that you've done similar projects to that. Okay, maybe it's building a huge building, right? Or maybe implementing a package software, right? For example, it could be some IBM or Oracle project, right? Or SAP product that you are trying to implement. The good thing here is it is complicated. It has a lot of complications in that, but you have done similar projects. Okay, so there is some good practices that you can take from those and apply it here. Okay, here also you can use waterfall, but agile definitely can be used here. Okay, then the third category is complex projects. Okay, this is where the lot of uncertainty, a lot of stakeholders, a lot of unknowns, right? Maybe you're building a new product. Okay, maybe you're building a very complex. Maybe it's a package implementation only, but it's complex. A lot of integrations it has. Okay, a lot of stakeholders, a lot of uncertainties, right? In that case, using waterfall becomes little difficult. Okay, because you don't know, right? I mean, in waterfall, you need to know everything in the beginning, okay? Right? That is when you have to have all the requirements defined, right? You have to create all the designs, right? The usual waterfall model, right? Your requirement collection, design, document, testing. That's how it goes, right? Waterfall. So if you get this kind of projects, waterfall becomes a little difficult, okay? This is where agile comes into picture. You start with what you know, right, in the beginning, okay? So one example for a complex project is building a autonomous vehicle, okay, where you've never done that before, right? I mean, maybe as of now the technology is okay now, but first time when you're building it, right, you don't know, right, what logic to put in, right? Because you have to make sure that no accidents happen, right? There could be a lot more scenarios. There's so much uncertainties that could happen, okay? Or first time if you're trying to land a person on moon, right? That's a very complex project, right? So those kind of projects using waterfall becomes a little difficult, and that's where agile can be used, better suited for, okay? So anarchy is where it's a war-like situation, right? Pandemic, right? Those kind of situation where no, I mean, you cannot have best practice, you cannot have good practice, you can have just novel practices, okay? Here no project management practice can be applied. You have to go with what you can do, okay? It's a very difficult situation where everything is uncertain, you don't have requirements, you don't have lot of stakeholders who are not agreeing to each other, okay? You don't have to get into this situation, okay? At least maximum we can manage up to complex projects, okay? Any questions? Okay, so
any examples of projects, anarchy projects?
uh, anarchy projects, as I said, pandemic is an anarchy situation, sci-fi, okay, right? I don't have a good example of software project, but we might have seen, right, in our careers, right, where some projects, right, see, I mean, PMI itself says that 70% of the projects have failed, okay, of all the projects that have been run, right? So we would have seen a lot of projects like that where in the beginning also you never had agreement with the stakeholders, right? You just start off, and then, I mean, you have to end abruptly end, right, or at least do something out of what you plan to do.
So can we say vaccine is one of them which skipped many processes and then in a market for some reason, some good reason now?
Yeah, so you had to get emergency approval, you're talking about that, right?
Yes. So it
Yeah,
skips a formal process of doing everything, and but still it works out in the market.
yeah. Maybe we can take that as an example, right? I mean, because you for a normal vaccine it takes few years to get approval, right? But here the situation was so bad, right? I mean, it was like anarchy situation where because of the pandemic, right, epidemic, we had to kind of get an emergency approval. Yeah, maybe that could be example. Yes.
Even we can probably consider an e-commerce site as well. Like say, for example, the way you want to, display the rates of the products, and where you want to display the promotions, the discounts given different, right? Even actually, if you consider, it could be a bigger effort that is
Yeah,
needed.
that will come in complicated and complex
Right.
projects only, okay? They'll not go into, see,
Right.
definitely websites have been built for so many years. If probably you're building in 2004 2005, maybe that time it could be complex, okay? But now if you ask, it's a complicated only, okay? Because you've done the kind of work so many times, right? See,
Right.
complicated also is a tough project to do, okay? Don't think that complicated is easy to do, okay? It's also a huge project, but you have at least good practices defined for most of the stuff.
Yeah, that's correct. Agree. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's understand agile, okay, in a simple way, okay? So let's take an example, right? You have three forms, okay? Form 1, form 2, form 3, and your requirement to produce tomatoes, onions, and potatoes, okay? So if it is waterfall, right, what you do, okay, you'll get all the requirements, okay? I need to produce tomatoes, I need to produce onions, I need to produce potatoes, right? So if it is waterfall, what we do is start flowing in all three forms, right? That could be your design, right? And then you put seeds in all three forms, right? And you start growing. You put urea, you start growing. So let's assume it's like 3-month project, okay? So 1.5 month, you realize that there is no value for potato, okay? Market value has gone down for potato, but you can't do anything. You already have put the seeds in all three forms, right? You already have started growing potatoes, okay? That is the way waterfall works, right? You already captured the requirements, you did design, you started development, okay? You maybe half developed it, okay? So if you have to do some change, it's very difficult. You have to undo, everything will go waste, okay? You have to redo everything. Whereas if you take Agile, the way Agile works, right? So what would you do is, okay, you have these three items, three requirements, right? First, you see which has the highest value. Okay, let's assume tomato has the highest value. So you start working with tomato in the first iteration or in the first sprint. Okay, so you start working on tomato. You just plow the form for tomato, right? You put seeds. You put, I mean, take care of that form, right? And maybe it takes a little longer because first time you're doing. But in the meanwhile, you realize that the same scenario happened. There is no value for potatoes. Okay, so now you have option of either putting tomatoes in the third form or growing onions in the third form, because you have the time now, right? You have the flexibility. You just grown only tomatoes. Okay, or in the meanwhile you realize that even onion doesn't have value, so you can grow tomato in form 2 and form 3 as well, right? So that is how Agile works, right? You can inspect and you can adapt. Okay, but once you start something, you cannot change. In between iteration, in between sprint to sprint, you cannot change. But at least since you have faster delivery to market, right? So you're going to grow it in 1 month or maybe 1.5 months first time. Okay, but now you have the practice also of growing. So in the second iteration, you can choose what will, depending on the value of the market at that time, you can choose it, what is needed. Did you understand this example? Any questions?
No, example is good, but farming
Yes.
doesn't go like that.
How does it go otherwise?
It's a hard for 4 months.
Yeah.
Four
Yeah. I mean, let's take features. Okay. I mean, I just give a simple example, right? I mean, you could have feature 1, feature 2, feature 3 to develop, right? So if it was waterfall, you would have started all of them together, right? If it is agile, you will start with feature 1. Okay, let's take tomato as a feature 1, right? You started building feature 1, and then you realize that feature 3 doesn't have any value, right? So it's going to go down in the priority. Then you can build another feature 1, or you want to build feature 2 times, you can build the feature 2 times, right? Okay, so let's go, right? We'll take more
Okay.
examples. Don't worry. Okay, so what is agile? I mean, somebody I think gave that answer. Simple. If somebody asks you, right, what is agile, the only simple answer is agile is a mindset. Okay, and it's just a set of values and principles. Okay, so it is not Scrum. Okay, so agile just defines set of values and principles. We're gonna see what are the agile values. Okay, if somebody asks, you can give this answer. Okay, and nobody will question that answer. Agile is a mindset. It's a set of values and principles. Okay. So we'll look at manifesto for agile software development. Okay, so what they're talking about. Okay, one question here. When was Scrum introduced? Anybody has an answer? First, when was Scrum introduced?
Two 2005.
Okay. Close,
Because
but yeah.
I
Yes.
started hearing at least from 2010. So at
Yeah,
least 5 years
2010
back.
is when the first this one came. Okay, that this one, right? The manifesto, the book of Scrum, right? It's called what is called? I think there's some name, right? Scrum Principles. So that got updated recently in 2020 November as well. So 2010, first time that book was released. Any other answers? So there is one more surprising thing. Scrum came first and then Agile came. Okay. So 1986 in Japan, Scrum word was used first time in the production industry. Okay. So 1993, Ken Blanchett, so he first used the word Scrum, and he started using Scrum, and then 95 formally they kind of announced about Scrum. 2001 is when Agile came. Okay, there were 17 of the top software consultants got into a place, and they defined Agile manifesto and Agile principles and all. Okay, 2001 and 2002 is it started used. In 2010 is when the first Scrum guide was introduced, and they started picking up after 2007-8 actually. Okay, and definitely after 2010 it kind of skyrocketed after that. Okay, so what they're talking about here is they're telling that they're still uncovering better ways of doing. Okay, still they're doing it. Okay, both the Scrum developers, right? So they are still kind of working on it. Okay, they are still continuing to work on it. Okay, they're telling that we are still discovering new ways of developing software. Okay, And there are four. This has four basically. This manifesto has four principles. Okay, first is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Right, what it means. It's. I mean, all of these are very powerful, but we have to understand that the right side also is important, but they are giving more value to the left side. Okay, statement on the left side. Okay, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. What it is talking about is right the individual interactions, the team, the interaction of the team, the interaction with the product owner, the scrum master, the interaction with the business, interaction with the stakeholders has more importance over what processes to follow, right? What tools to follow. Doesn't mean that we are not following any processes or using any tools, but here, see, if you look at other waterfall and all, it has very defined, very strict processor and tools you have to use. Here, it's very flexible. Okay, the team can choose what processes they want. For example, definition of done. Okay, we're going to talk about definition of done later. So every team can choose a definition of done that would suit them. Okay, and they can choose any tool they want to use. Okay, there's no hard and fast rule that you have to follow this tool only. You have to use this tool only. Okay, so it's very flexible, but it's mostly the interaction that is needed. Okay, how good the team can gel and how they can interact well is what is given more importance. Okay, the second principle is working software or comprehensive documentation. Okay, here the only criteria of success is working software. Okay, you might have great documentation, you might have great design documents, you might have best of the guides, but if the software itself is not working, it is of no use, right? So working software is it's very, very important compared to the comprehensive documentation. Doesn't mean that you don't document at all. So some people think that Scrum means no documentation required. Not that's not correct. You need to have some documentation, right? At least some documentation so that people understand what you're doing, right? What you're building. But working software has higher priority. Okay. The third one is customer collaboration or contract negotiation. Okay. So earlier, right, contracts for everything, right? I mean, different type of contracts, right? I mean, if it is not in contract, I'm not going to do, right? If my time is over, I'm not going to work beyond that, right? But here, customer collaboration, right? You are collaborating with customer on everyday basis. Okay. So basically, PO is the main stakeholder, right? He is your business. Okay. He's the one who will define what needs to be built, and he's working with the team on day-to-day basis. Okay. In even the end stakeholders, users are also involved in your review meetings and right. So customer collaboration, they know what is being built, right? If there's something changing, they can always ask for a new feature that can be added to the product backlog and done. Okay. So customer collaboration has higher value. Okay. The last one is responding to change or following a plan. Okay. Right. So here, always we are ready to accept changes. Okay. Right. Any change you want, it's okay. Right. We're ready to take. But again, right, depending on our capacity, right, the team's capacity, we're going to work on it. Right. Doesn't mean that I'll take everything and do it. There's no commitment. Right. But going back to that old example of feature 1, 2, 3, right? So I mean, once you started off in waterfall, you can't do anything, right? Here, okay, if feature 3 is gone, you can get feature 4, feature 5, right? So remove feature 2, 3, add feature 4, 5. It's okay, right? So it's responding to change that has more value, okay, compared to following a strict plan, right? Of waterfall or any other plan, right? Where it's a rigid plan, you cannot change anything, right? So otherwise, it's going to impact my time, it's going to impact my money, right? Not like that, okay? So you have a team, right? Or maybe multiple teams who is building a product, right? So you have all the flexibility of, defining what you want to do in the coming sprints, right? Next sprint that's going to come, right? So you have all the flexibility. The PO and the stakeholders have the flexibility of changing and getting whatever they want. Any questions on these four manifesto items? Anything else to add? Okay, so let's get into what is Scrum, right? So what we saw till now is definition of Agile. Why do we use Agile? Okay, we're gonna talk about that again as we go, right, in the Scrum as well. So Scrum is one of the framework that uses Agile principles. Okay, so Scrum is a framework. Kanban is a framework. XP is a framework. SAFe, right, the new scaled Agile framework, right? That also uses Agile principles. Okay, so Scrum is one of the most used one. Okay, in Agile. Okay, there are others, Kanban as well, right? I mean, where you don't want to, Kanban doesn't have sprints. Okay, it is just take the work based on your capacity, right, and do that work, and the work is done. Okay, there's no sprints in that. Okay, only based on your capacity you pull the work. Okay, that is Kanban. There is Lean Agile. Okay, so all of that, right? So, but Scrum is mostly used. So we're going to talk about Scrum here. Okay, so what is Scrum? Okay, it's a development framework. So based on the empirical process, right? The reason why I defined empirical process on the first slide is because of this. Okay, so what is empirical process? It is transparency, right? So it has three pillars, right? Transparency, everybody understands what is happening. Okay, so imagine, I mean, the earlier days, right, everybody used to ask, okay, give me status, right? Give me status. How is the project doing, right? Everybody is worried about that red, green, yellow thing, right? But here it's everything is transparent. Okay, so because you might be using a tool like Jira, right? So which has everything, right? What is the team working, right? Where are they now, right? You have sprint burn down charts, you have different release burn down charts, right? All of that is very easy now, right? I mean, you can have velocity of the team, so people know, right, what is happening. So it's very transparent. Okay, and inspection and adaptation, right? So every sprint, right, you have an option of inspecting, right, what is being done, whether it's being done right or not, right? In the sprint review, right, we're going to talk about all of that ceremonies later, right? So you have sprint review, and every day you have the daily scrum, right, where you're inspecting what you're building, whether you're building it right or not, right? If you need to adjust, you can always adjust, you can adapt. Okay, so these three pillars are the pillars of empirical process. Okay, so scrum is built on this. Okay, Scrum employs iterative and incremental approach, as we said, right? It builds iteratively and incremental approach to optimize value delivery and to manage risk. Okay, so value is delivered, okay, through the iterations and increments. Okay, and it has less risk because you're just doing that work for maybe 2 weeks or 4 weeks, right? So I mean, there will be risk. I'm not saying that you won't have any risk, but risk are reduced compared to waterfall or other methodologies. Okay, Scrum also has a few values. Okay, I'm not going to get into details of this. Focus is one. Okay, openness, respect, courage, and commitment. Focus is very, very important. Okay, I mean, focus. One example is, right, you need to have one team, right, and you don't want to change a team often. Okay, what happens, right? We keep dropping people or adding people, right? Scrum says that it's better to keep one team longer, same team for longer, because team also has different phases of it goes through, right? It is first it is forming, storming, norming, performing, right? I'm going to talk about that later again, right? And then adjourning, right? So a team also goes through a process, right? If you keep adding people, the focus changes. And another thing of focus is one team should work on only one product. Okay, you cannot have a team working on different products, right? You cannot have one team member working in different teams. You cannot have that. The focus is very, very important. Okay, and openness, definitely, right? Everything is open here. Respect for each other, respect for what we're doing, right? Courage is very, very important. Okay, I mean, what we're doing is we're living in the world where courage and taking risk ability is very, very important, right? You have to be courageous, and commitment. Okay, whatever we kind of take the work, we should commit. The team should be able to committing on whatever work they are taking in the sprint. Okay, so commitment is very, very important. It's a kind of value of Scrum. Okay, so how Scrum works? Okay, any questions? Is that a question? Okay, sure. So on one slide we have defined, okay, how Scrum works. Okay, we're gonna get into detail definitely, right? So the how, right? First you have the product backlog. So it's a ordered list of features. Okay, ordered list. Okay, prioritized list of features that you want to build for a product. Okay, so it's just a kind of laundry list of items, right? You have that are there. On the top you have more granular or groomed items, right? Features that are more clear, or stories which are more clear. On the top you have, so that's a product backlog. Okay, and then from there you have the sprint backlog. That is where the team pulls in from that product backlog PBI items. The team pulls in, right? And you have the sprint planning meeting. Okay, and you have the sprint backlog. Okay, so you pull those in the sprint planning meeting, you pull those items and you create the sprint backlog. Okay, and then you have the daily scrum, right? And you have the sprint. Okay, sprint is from 1 to 4 weeks. Okay, we're going to talk all of this in detail. I'm just giving some high level overview here. Okay, so daily scrum, which is a daily meeting where the team kind of comes in and sees what did go well, what did I do yesterday, what I'm doing today, any risk and dependencies. Okay, and then sprint itself is a event, okay, which could be somewhere from 1 to 4 weeks. Okay, and then once you do the sprint, you have a shippable product. Okay, potentially shippable product. And then your sprint review, where you get all your stakeholders and product owner, right, any end users also if possible, and show what the team did in the sprint. Okay, and after that you have the sprint retrospective, right? This is again a very important inspect and adapt meeting where the team comes in and sees, right, what did go well, what did not go well, right, what improvements are needed or what they need to continue. Okay, so this is Scrum in a single slide. Okay, let's get into Scrum framework. Okay, so there are 3 roles. We're going to talk about them in detail. We have a separate slide for product owner, Scrum master, and development team. Okay, so Scrum has 3 roles. Okay, the first one is a product owner. Okay, he is also called as the CEO of the product. So he is responsible for return on investment of the team. So he is basically responsible for even a budget, okay, of that product. He is the one who has the budget. He knows how much money I have, right? How many teams can I have, right? How many features can I build, right? What is needed in the product. So he's basically the CEO of the product. Okay, he has all the authority of what the team is gonna build. Okay, what, not how, what. Okay, what they have to build. Okay, so that's product owner. A Scrum master is another role. So Scrum master's basic role is he has to make sure that Scrum is being followed. Okay, the Scrum principles, Scrum methodology is being followed in the organization and in the team. Okay, so that's Scrum master's role, right? So basically, he works with product owner, right? He works with the team, he works with the stakeholders, right? He works with the organization to make sure that Scrum is possible. Development team, so it is the team. Okay, it's a cross-functional team which has all the experts, right? It could be the UI developers, it could be the backend developers, it could be the QA people, it could be the architects. So the team is cross-functional. Okay, we're going to talk about team also in detail. Okay, so this team is the one that's going to actually do the work. Okay, so it's called development team. Okay, the other QA people should not feel bad. Okay, it's a term that is given by Scrum. Development team means it is inclusive of everybody. Okay, your QA, your automation, right? Your developers, right? Your everybody, DevOps, right? All of that is included in the dev team. Okay, but this team works on its own. Okay, usually it is not supposed to take help from outside, but sometimes it's okay. Okay, if there is a dependency, if there is a block, right? Maybe you don't have a DevOps expert, right, in your team. That's okay to take help from the outside, but it is better to have all of those skills in the team. Okay, same team. Okay, that is the development team. Okay, and if somebody says Scrum team, then all these 3 roles are included in that. Okay, Scrum team is all 3 roles included in that. Okay, so if it is development team, then it is only the development team. Okay, which does not include the Scrum master and product owner. Okay, that is development. If somebody says Scrum team, so all 3 are included. Okay, product owner, Scrum master, and development team. Okay, moving on. 3 artifacts. Okay, Scrum has 3 artifacts. One is the product backlog. So as I said in the previous slide, right, product backlog is a ordered list of items or features or stories. Okay, that need to be built for the product. It's a list of all the features. Okay, so if anything is not in the product backlog, the team is never going to work on that, right? So basically, this is a list of all the things that team might work on someday. Okay, so it keeps refining. You keep refining this. Okay. So the more granular and more, simpler and higher priority ones will go up. Not simpler, higher priority ones will go up. Right, low priority ones are down. Anything new gets added down, right? And the product owner keeps refining it and keeps moving up as needed. Okay, so he might do grooming with the team, right? Or he might decide himself and put priorities on those. And he will work with the team and put story points to that. We're going to talk about that later. Okay, so it is product owner who manages the product backlog. Okay, he's the owner of that. Sprint backlog. Okay, so this is the items that the team committed to do in a particular sprint. Okay, the sprint could be from 1 week to 4 weeks. So sprint backlog is the list of items that the team has pulled from the product backlog into the sprint backlog. Okay, it's again an order list of items. Okay, so and the team has agreed, are committed to do that in a particular sprint. Okay, that is sprint backlog. And the third artifact is product increment. Okay, it is the shippable product, right? So it's an increment that you get out of the end of the sprint, right? So the team, it is the product that the team built. Okay, you might release it or not release it. That is again a product owner's choice. Okay, you might release it as and when the increment is ready, or you might delay it for maybe after 2 sprints you have released, right? Sometimes you have monthly releases, sometimes you have bi-weekly releases. Depending on when you want to release, that's the decision of product owner and the release manager, right? But increment is given by the team. The team basically gives a shippable product at the end of the sprint. Okay, it might include everything they committed to, or it might include less, or they might add more also. Okay, Scrum has 5 events. Okay, 3 roles, 3 artifacts, and 5 events. The first one is the sprint. Sprint also is an event. Okay, and it includes all other events inside it. Okay, it's like a outer box, right, which has all other events inside it. Okay, and everything here is time boxed. Okay, very important point on this slide is everything in Scrum is time boxed. Okay, you cannot go beyond that time. You can be lesser than that time, it's okay, but you should never go beyond that. So what Scrum says is sprint can be lesser than equal to 30 days. The maximum a sprint can be of 30 days, right? We have seen, I have worked in sprint which is 1 week. Okay, and we have been very successful actually. When in the beginning we had a lot of hesitation to do 1 week sprint, but we are very successful doing 1 week sprint. So I worked in 2 week sprints. Usually it's 2 weeks nowadays. Some people have 4 week sprints. In my current project, we are in a new company, we're using 4 week sprints. Okay, so that's the maximum you can go, 30 days. Okay, 4 week sprint. The next is sprint planning meeting. Okay, the max it can have is for 8 hours. So 8 hours is for 1 month sprint, 4 hours for 2 week sprint, and 2 hours for 1 week sprint. That is how it is defined. Okay, so 8 hours maximum you can do sprint planning. Okay, what happens in sprint planning? Probably we'll talk about that more in detail, right? So it has 2 pieces, right? The product owner would come and tell, okay, he'll show you the product backlog item, which has all the items. So then he'll define, right? He'll tell the priority and you pull in. He'll tell what needs to be built in that sprint. And the team in the second part decides how it needs to be done. Okay, it has 2 parts. Sprint planning always has 2 parts. What defined by the product owner and how, right? You're going to discuss design, you're going to discuss architecture, right? How am I going to build this? How am I going to build a product increment for this in this sprint, right? So that also gets discussed in the sprint planning meeting. Daily Scrum. Okay, so sprint is called the heart of the Scrum. Sprint is called the heart of Scrum, and daily Scrum is called as the heart of the sprint. Okay, I'll repeat. Sprint is called as the heart of the Scrum. So sprint is everything in a Scrum, and daily Scrum is everything in a sprint. Okay, so this is the most important inspect and adapt meeting where the team comes in, right, and kind of talks to each other. Okay, it's again a team meeting. It's a development team meeting. Okay, Scrum Master may be there, may not be there. It's okay. In the beginning, he needs to be there to making sure that team is following that 15-minute criteria, right? And team is not digressing, right? Team is not discussing something else, right? You just need to tell those 3 questions, right? What I did yesterday, what I'm going to do today, any roadblocks. Okay, those 3 things need to be discussed, right? And if there is any further discussion, people can stay back and continue. But the meeting has to end in 15 minutes. And it's very difficult. Okay, in the beginning, I've seen Scrums running for a daily Scrum running for 2-3 hours. 2-3 hours. Okay, literally. So we have to make sure that it gets reduced. It goes to 15 minutes. I mean, I've seen daily Scrum lasting only for 8-9 minutes also, even with a team of 9 people. If you know how to do it, you can do it in 10 minutes actually. Okay. And the 4th one is sprint review. Okay, this is where you do the demo. It's also called demo of the sprint, right? This is where you show what the team built in the sprint. Okay, again, maximum 4 hours for 1 month, 2 hours for 15 days, right? 2 weeks, and 1 hour if it is a 1 week sprint. Okay, so maximum is 4 hours you can have a review. But it's very important that you call all the stakeholders, right? If possible, end users for the sprint review. Okay, so it's very important, very important inspect and adapt meeting. And the last one is the retrospective. Okay, so again, time box here. 1 month is maximum 3 hours you can have. 2 weeks is 2 hours. If it is 1 week sprint, it's 1 hour. Okay, so but it's a very important meeting, right? It is for the development team. Product owner should be there. A Scrum Master also should be there. Right? Can be there or should be there. It's okay. In the beginning, he should be there just to make sure everything is being followed. Then later he can skip also if required. Okay, so it is where we should encourage everybody to speak. Okay, not many people speak here, so it's Scrum Master's responsibility to make sure that there's an environment where everybody speaks, right? Everybody tells what did go well, what did not go well in the sprint, right? What we can improve. Okay, so it's very important meeting. Any questions on this slide? So basically, this is a kind of crux of Scrum. Okay, so we're going to go into detail all of this. Any questions?
Yeah, sir. Where do managers fall under these 3 roles? Managers and delivery managers and engineering managers. Those also part of development team here, or do they belong to some other category?
Yeah, great question. Are you a manager?
No.
Want to be a manager?
I want to be a manager, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All of us are in that dilemma, right? We are all managers. Many of us are managers, but we don't know, right? So it's a very tricky question. Okay. So Scrum actually doesn't have any roles for managers. Okay, you have to either become a Scrum Master or senior Scrum Master or a product owner. Okay, whereas SAFe, right, which is now very being used in many organizations. Okay, it's called Scaled Agile Framework. That actually has program managers and all. Okay, here what people usually do is, right, Scrum Masters, project managers have become mostly Scrum Masters. Okay, it's not an easy transition, but mostly project managers is what I've seen, that they have taken either Scrum Master or senior Scrum Master role. Right, senior Scrum Master is where you have multiple teams, so you're going to run Scrum of Scrums, right? You're basically coordinating between different Scrum Masters. Okay, so but there is no role for a project manager in Scrum. Okay, whereas technical manager could be a part of the product development team, where he could be architect, right? Or he could be a technical lead who can be kind of helping the team. Okay, or he might be helping multiple teams.
How about the delivery manager? Is it not a role here?
See, it is actually needed, right? So one is here you're talking about, see, Scrum team works on the sprint, right? So delivery manager can work with the product manager, right? Product owners in defining the product backlog, right? So he's the one who understand, he would work with the product owner, product manager to defining the vision, strategy, right? All of that, the bigger things, right? Above product backlog, right? Where he'll be working with the stakeholders, right? Kind of defining what products to build, right? So that is where the delivery managers would come in, right? Little above the sprint, little above the product backlog, right? He might be involved in releases and all. But yeah, it as of now, it's a difficult transition for all of those people. Okay, they have to fit into Agile.
Is there a criteria, not criteria, is there a boundaries for the number of resources to be in a part of any of the team?
Yeah. So yes, it's 6 plus or minus 3. Okay. No, you're talking about numbers or you're talking about anything else?
Numbers, actually, the resources.
Yeah, 6 plus or minus 3. Okay. 6 plus or minus 3. So the minimum you can have is 3, max you can have is 9. So the smallest team of Scrum is 3 people, the maximum is 9 people. But we have seen people having 10, 12 also. It becomes a little difficult to manage, right? Especially the ceremonies, right? Especially daily Scrum, right? If you have 12, 13 people, the daily Scrum would go longer, right? The challenges would come. So it's better to, so what people usually do is they start with more people and then they kind of split the teams. Okay. That's what I've usually done, right? Start with 13, 14 people. It's okay in the beginning, right? When the team is trying to understand the product well, it's okay to keep in the beginning. Then you can probably split the team into 7 and 7, depending on the skills, right? Depending, you understand the team and people better that time. You can split the team later. But the minimum is 3. Okay, you cannot have less than 3. See, if you have less than 3, basically you cannot produce much value, right? So it's better to 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, max, right? But you need to have all people, right? You need to have QA, you need to have backend UI developers. Not everybody will be full stack, right? So you'll have to have different developers, right? You might have to have a senior tech person, right, who can help the team, right, in any issues and all, right? So basically it's a mix. So it's good to have 7, 8 people.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah, sprint review, in the sense it's like a feedback with the like a stakeholder, or it includes development team as well.
Yeah. So development team is doing the demo, right, based on what they built. So there will be stakeholders who will review it. Okay, they'll not stop or they'll not question and they'll not kind of say that what you build is crap. So they can give suggestions and product owner would take those and put in the product backlog, right? If, for example, you built a feature, right, then the stakeholder might say, no, I wanted something different. They'd say it's okay. We'll add it to the product backlog item. If it is a higher priority, we will do it in the next sprint. Okay.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, definitely you have to take the review. Okay, definitely you have to take the feedback. Okay, so feedback is very important. Okay, that meeting, it's better to call everybody. Okay, from the whoever is interested in that product. Okay, whoever is the end user. I mean, it could be end user, it could be yeah. So basically, everybody is better to call everybody to that meeting.
Okay, got it.
Retrospective is only team meeting. Okay, so that is where the team itself kind of introspect, right? What did go well, what did not go well in the last sprint. Okay. So as I said in
sorry, just one thing. So the sprint grooming sessions are part of the planning itself here, right?
Yeah. So that's a good question, right? Grooming is not defined as an event, but it's a very, very important meeting. It's actually, some of them call it as 6th event. Okay, right? So grooming, or some places called look ahead meetings, LAM. Okay. So grooming, the backlog grooming, it's a very important meeting, but it's not defined as an event in Scrum. But most of the people follow it, right? Otherwise, you will have a very long sprint planning meeting. Okay. If you don't do good grooming, if you don't do that LAM, right, look ahead meetings, right, your planning could last for a day or more. Okay. Right. So it's very important that you groom, right? I mean, say for example, if you say you have 2 weeks sprint, right? So it's better to at least have a 2 or 4 hours grooming session for the next sprint. Okay, in this sprint, right? Maybe in the second week, you block 2 hours session, right? And do the, or at least 1 hour session, right? If you do that, right, your planning will be very quick, right? Because the team already understands what are the top priority items, right? And they would already pointed those, and it's easy to pull them into the sprint. If you don't do grooming, if you don't do that look at meetings, it becomes very difficult in the planning meeting. You're going to spend a lot of time.
So do you have a cap on the grooming timing as we have it for 5 events? So something at least approximately?
Yeah, see, since it's not defined in Scrum, so what usually I have seen is, right, if it is a 2 week sprint, at least 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours is a good time to spend on grooming. If it is 2 week sprint, okay. So if you spend that 2-3 hours, your planning will not be of 4 hours, okay, right? But if you don't spend that 2-3 hours, right, what people feel that, okay, I'm already busy in the sprint, right? I don't have time. But if they can remove that, if they can give that time of 2 hours at least for grooming, they'll save 2-3 hours in the planning easily. Because that time it's very easy, right? People know what to pull in, right? They'll just pull in and they'll just discuss on how it needs to be done, okay, in the planning. It's not easy, okay? You have to kind of, as a Scrum Master, right, you have to kind of push it to have this meeting. Product owner also might agree, but the team will not agree. Team will tell we're busy developing, right? They'll tell that I don't have time, but at least you have to remove some time. Okay, so let's move on. I think we are already 11:50. Okay, Scrum framework here. Okay, so the artifacts, right? The 3 artifacts, right? We're going to talk about that in detail. So we kind of covered, so I'm going to touch a few more points, okay? So the product backlog is an emergent list of items, right? So basically, it's a list of all features that you want to build in the product, okay? To improve the product, okay? And it is a single source of work that will be undertaken by the Scrum team, okay? So product owner is the kind of responsible person to manage this. Okay, if you remember earlier the requirement document, right, it's similar to that. Okay, right, the BS used to manage this requirement document, right? Similarly here, the product owner manages the product backlog. Okay, it's a list of all the items, right? Anybody can add to product backlog. Okay, even a developer might come and tell that, okay, I feel that from a user perspective, having this feature might help, right? Maybe a UI developer, you have a senior UI developer, right? He, while building, he might realize that, okay, we don't have this feature, it's better to have this feature. He can add the item to the product. He can tell to the he himself can add, or he can ask the product owner to add that feature. Okay, and anybody, stakeholders definitely can ask product owner to add items. Okay, and product owner himself might add features, right? Or anybody can add features. Okay, in the sprint review also, basically sprint review, a lot of items get added to the product backlog, right? While reviewing. So, I mean, users might have thought of a feature, but when you see the product, they might get some different ideas, right? So that time they might add more items to the product backlog. Sprint backlog, right? So as I said, right, it's a set of items that Scrum team selects from the product backlog to do in the upcoming sprint. Okay, this is kind of created in the sprint planning meeting, right? Where the whole team comes in, right? Product owner is a must-have in this meeting, right? Because he is the one who's going to tell, right, what are the high priority items, okay, what he wants to be built in this sprint. Okay, he will tell, say, 5 items, right? The team might say, no, we can't do these 5 items, right? They'll say we'll do 4 items. So it's a team who can decide how much they can pull into the sprint. Product owner cannot force the team to take more features. Okay, he can probably tell that this is more higher priority, and he can rearrange and give the items, and if needed, he can break the items into smaller stories, right? Maybe some stories are complex, right? Some stories they are not understanding, so he can break it and give it, but he cannot force the team how much to take in the sprint. Okay, so he can tell what needs to build, so the team takes that, right? And as I said, sprint backlog has all the items, right? And it here you don't have, here also you can have priority, but usually whatever you pull into sprint, you're committed to that basically, right? So you're expected to deliver that. product increment, not much to add here. As I said, it's the end product, right? Shippable product that the team builds at the end of the sprint. It's very important that you have the go. Right? You kind of think about it in the sprint planning only, right? How does my end product is going to look like, right? So very important, and everybody should have the same vision, same goal to build that increment. Okay. Okay. Moving on. Any questions on this one?
Product
Okay,
increment is sorry.
Yes.
So product
Go ahead.
increment is output of sprint backlog. So whatever plan.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah. And it meets definition of done. Okay. So definition of done is a very powerful and important concept, right? So definition of done can be, say, if it is a larger organization, usually they would define a definition of done. Okay. So that the team can follow. Okay. Or if there is no definition of done defined by the organization, so definition of done can be, right, 80% code coverage, right? So right, something like that, right? And no critical or no high defects, right? So unit test cases passed, right? Unit testing done, right? So those are some of the examples of definition of done, right? And UX, the whatever product you develop matches with UX, right? So all of those could be definition of done. Okay. And the team should meet the definition of done. Okay. So that is, product increment should meet the definition of done. You cannot have a product increment which is not meeting the definition of done. Okay. It's very important that if definition of done is defined, you have to meet that criteria. It's like standard. Okay. Scrum framework. So what are the different events? Sprint, right? As you said, sprint is a time box of 1 month or less, and is a container of all the other events. Okay. Sprint enables predictability, right? So anybody, right, can easily see what is happening and expect what the outcomes, how the team is going to do at that, right? So it's more predictability, right? So you have, if you're using Jira, as I said, right, there are a lot of reports and stats you can pull out of it, and you can easily tell that what the team is working, whether they're doing, whether they're progressing right or not. For example, if you pulled in, say, 10 stories, right? So if it is a 2-week sprint, day 3, day 4 only you start realizing whether you're doing the right progress or not, because you see that the board, you see this Jira board, right? You see that whether the team, say, out of 10 items, right, that you pulled in. So if you realize that only 3 or 4 are started on the day 4, day 5, that means you're at risk, right? Probably you can inspect and adapt, right? Maybe see, right, what is happening, something is wrong, right? If the team needs any help. So probably you can do all of that with the by seeing the sprint boards. The sprint planning. So as I said, right, we discussed kind of in detail on this, right? What can be done in the sprint. So basically it has 2 parts to it. Okay. So as I said, right, the product owner drives the first part, right? If it is a 4 hours meeting, so usually first 1.5 or 2 hours, the product owner talks about the vision, right? How the product is developing, right? And he talks about what features he wants to be built in the coming sprint, right? So what features are important, right? So team agrees to that. So if team agrees to that, and then in the second part, they're going to discuss how. Okay. So this is where, so you'd have pointed, story pointing is done either in the grooming, right? Or during the first part of the sprint planning, right? But during how, you might change the story point. Say probably you put a story point of 5. So, but during how you realize that no, it's more complex. So that time still in the planning, right? You can kind of change those points, or you increase or decrease those points. Okay. Because you got into how, right? You discussed the architecture, you discussed the design, probably with the architect, right? So probably you realize that it's more complex or more simpler. So you can change the story points. Okay. And also usually sprint goal is defined by the product owner. Okay. So he might have features and define a goal, right? I want to maybe build some capability in the sprint. Okay. Goal of the sprint, not mandatory, but it's good to have it. So daily Scrum, it's a key inspect and adapt meeting for dev team. Okay. So few points here, right? So it needs to be done at the same time in the same place each day. Okay. When we are in offices, it was pretty much easier, right? Used to have a defined place, right, where everybody used to come, right, and stand up and do the daily Scrum. Okay. So, and usually it's not a meeting. So what people think that it's a meeting where team provides update to Scrum Master, product owner. That's not correct. Okay. The team is providing updates to each other. Okay. The team is talking and giving updates to each other that I did this, I did that. So I'm stuck here, I'm stuck there. Right? If you're stuck, probably Scrum Master might come and help, or product owner might come and help. But it's the team which is giving status to each other, okay, not to the Scrum Master. So this is where our project managers, right, come in, right? They always want statuses, right? So project managers have the this one of asking status, right? You're actually not supposed to ask status. The team is supposed to provide status, okay? But it's difficult in the beginning. Probably you need to handhold them to do this. But once they get used to it, they'll know what to do in this daily scrum, okay? So they done at the same time, right? And at the same time, but now with COVID, right, it's a little challenging, right? But still, we need to keep the same time, right? We should not move the time of the daily scrum. Okay. Sprint review, right? The purpose of sprint is to inspect the outcome of sprint and determine future adaptations, right? As I said, right? So this meeting, the review is done. You have stakeholders, right? You who review the product. The product owner reviews the product, right? And any changes need to be done will be taken accordingly in the coming sprint. Retrospective, as I said, it's a meeting for the team, right? Where the team comes in and tells what worked well in the sprint, what did not work well. So what happens usually here is the Scrum Master takes the action items. Okay. So so 3 questions are asked here: what worked well, what did not work well, and what should continue, or what did I learn? Okay. The third question is optional, and you can take whatever you want. Okay. A few people take it as what to continue. A few people take it as what did I learn, right? But first 2 questions are very important: what worked well, what did not work well. So what did not work well could lead to action items, and you might take them as a product backlog item also. You might try to pull it to the product backlog, or you might pull it in the next sprint, right? Maybe you have some issue of, say, PR review. Okay, there could be delays in PR review, right? Usually you've seen that, right? You have very few people who can do PR reviews, right? So maybe it's kind of piling up, right? You have lots of developers waiting for the code to be merged, right? So that could be a challenge that people might tell, and you take it as an action item, and you assign that action item to some person, right? Okay, we need to resolve this, right? Let's get with a better mechanism of resolving this problem, right? It could be anything else also. Okay, it could be that availability of product owner, right? The team might tell that we are not getting product owner as we need it, right? So probably Scrum Master can talk to the product owner and make sure that he's available during daily scrum or other times in the team lead. Okay. Any questions?
Yeah. So who decides this sprint time? Whether it should be 4 weeks, 2 weeks, and what are the basis on the which it is decided?
Good question. Yeah. So usually, right, in the beginning, you have the product owner, right, and the Scrum Master. You might have some managers, right. Team might not be in a position to decide that, right. It's usually the Scrum Master and product owner who kind of take the decision in the beginning. If the team is mature enough, right, probably you can see. So usually, you see. It's better to start with longer time in the beginning, okay? Because team might be new, right? They might take more time to understand the process, understand the product. So it's better to start with longer time and then release it. Okay. But it's not, you should not keep changing every few months. Okay. So you start with 4 weeks, right? Or you start with 2 weeks, right? Usually people start with 2 weeks only and see how it is going, right? So depending on that, maybe after a few months you can change it, but you shouldn't change it very often.
Is that the sprint timeline is very much fixed to the team, or it should be organized level?
Mostly it's organization level. So usually I've seen that people start from Wednesday and end on Tuesday. Okay, 2 weeks, Wednesday to Tuesday. Some people start from Monday to Friday. Okay, Monday to Friday people avoid because it eats up into the weekends and all, right? So usually I've seen that people start from a Wednesday. The sprint starts from Wednesday and goes till second week Tuesday.
I believe we do see that it's on an organization level everywhere, but what does actually the Scrum says about it? So whether it can be vary or it has to be a same across org.
Yeah, see what Scrum says. I mean, usually what says if there's a standard at organization level, we should follow. Even definition of done, I was telling, right? If there is a definition of done defined at the organization level, we should follow the same. If it is not defined, you can define your own. But if the organization is following a sprint, it's better to follow that, because if there's any dependencies, right? If you have a different sprint timeline, if other teams are different, it becomes difficult, right? If you have the same, if you're following the same sprint calendar, dependencies and all could be defined better, and you can work with other teams better, right? So for example, say if you're a second week of the sprint, it's always challenging, right? If the other team is on the first week of the sprint, then if you have dependence, it becomes a little difficult to work with them. So it's better to follow what the whole organization follows.
Yeah.
So sprint time can be changeable, means once it declared as a fixed. So on the project requirement, it can be changeable or it is fixed.
No, see, what Scrum says that you should not change once you start building a product, right? So if you chose
Okay.
2 weeks, it's advisable to continue with 2 weeks, right? But if you have
Okay.
too many challenges, you're seeing that no, it's not at all working. It's okay to change, but you shouldn't change now. Okay, so from 2 weeks, let's go to 4 weeks. After 2 months, let's go back to 2 weeks. You shouldn't do that, right? If you decide to go to 4 weeks, stick to 4 weeks. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. So means it is possible to change, right?
Yeah. But it's not advisable. Okay, it's not advisable.
Okay.
But see, but
Yes, sir.
see, everything is flexible in Agile and Scrum. Okay, it's no hard and fast rule
Yes.
that you cannot do it. Okay, so if whatever works better to you and your organization, you can do it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. 12.5, right? Scrum roles, right? So we're gonna get into details of what are different Scrum roles. Development team. So as I said, it's a cross-functional team, right? It has people from different backgrounds, right? You can have UI experts, you can have backend experts, right? You can have architects, you can have QA people, right? Automation people, right? Functional, non-functional, right? So all those people are part of the development team. Okay, it's cross-functional, right? Because you have to do different kind of work. You might have to develop UI, you might have to develop backend, you might have to do testing, right? So you basically have to have all the skills in the team, right? Self-organizing, self-managing without externally assigned roles, right? So what it tells here is that team is self-sufficient, right? They can do all the kind of work, right? They can do backend work, they can do UI work. If there is even an architecture level change, they should be able to manage it to some level. Okay, maybe you might have enterprise architect who will do decision at the high level, but if it is a small change, if it is just maybe building two microservices, right? Maybe interaction between two microservices, right? That the team should be able to decide on their own. Okay, they should not be dependent on other people, right? Because if you're too much dependency, then there'll be more risk, and there'll be more roadblocks, right? So that's why there are no externally assigned roles, right? As I said, right? There is no separate architect, there is no separate manager for the team. Okay, so it's a team which manages everything. It's not easy. Okay, it looks very easy here, but it's not easy to do it. Okay, you still need to have some architects, right? You might still need to have DevOps people who might help externally in the beginning, right? But you should make an effort, right, to kind of build that skill in the team itself. Okay, right? Especially DevOps, right? The builds and your PR issues, all of that, the team should be able to resolve on their own, because there's no issue. You should reduce the dependency. Okay. Plans one sprint at a time with the product owner. So this is the work of the team. Okay, they'll plan and take whatever they want, right? Has autonomy regarding how to develop the increment. So they have all the autonomy how to do the work. Okay, what methods to use, right? What technology? I mean, technology could be a little higher thing, but otherwise, how to build is all depend on the team. Like, they can decide however they want. Product owner will not have much say on how to build. Okay, he'll say what to build, but how to build is decided with the team. Okay. Very collaborative, right? Very collaborative. Should be very collaborative. Okay. More successful when co-located in one team room. Okay. With COVID, this has gone for a toss, right? But Scrum says that team should be in one team, because it reduces a lot of kind of dependencies, right? If you're interacting with each other, it's much easier, much simpler, much better, right? If you're in the same team. At least for at least few sprints, right? I mean, if you can bring the team together for few sprints, and after that it's okay, they are moving away, because that bonding is already created. Okay? More successful long-term full-time membership, right? As I said, right, you should not keep changing teams. Okay, avoid moving people or assigning people to different teams. This is very much should be avoided. Okay, and as I said, team has 5 stages. Okay, team forming, where you're kind of creating a team, right? And here everybody have their own goals. And when you first come in, you have your own goals, right? You want to just prove yourself. And then the second state is called storming, okay, where the team was trying to work together, and there'll be some conflicts, right, issues that arise. And Scrum Master and product owner should come and try to resolve those, right? Scrum Master especially should resolve those conflicts, okay? And then there is norming stage, right, where everything is normalizing. The team is kind of gelling well, that they're kind of working with each other. And there's a performing state. That is where the team at the top of the velocity, right? They can do the best work at that time, right? But it takes few months to come to that state, right? You straight away don't come to norming and performing, right? So once performing, and you have to remove the team. It's adjourning is the last state where the team kind of moves away. The product is built, then you break that team. Okay, so that state we need to understand. Okay, you cannot expect great work from day one. Okay, it would take at least few months for the team to gel and go to that performing state. Okay, somebody had asked that question. 6 plus or minus 3 members. Minimum is 3, max is 9. Okay, you cannot have more than that for a long time. You can start with it's okay, right? But 9 is the max you should have. Has a leadership role. Okay, people might be confused. How can a team have leadership role? It's the whole team together has a leadership role, not an individual person. Okay, and another important point is, right, whatever is committed is not by the single person. It is the whole team's responsibility to do certain work, right? If you're taken, say, 5 stories, it is not person A, person B who will do story A, story B. Okay, it is the whole team who is responsible to deliver those 5 stories. Okay, so as a team whole has a leadership role. I mean, that's how you can decide what to pull, right? How much to work, how to do. So that is why it's a leadership role. Okay, Scrum role, product owner, right? As I said, he's the CEO of the product and single person for maximizing the values, right? He's the one who needs to understand the team, their capabilities, right? What features to build. So it is his responsibility to make sure that the team is productive and team is doing the right work, right? The work that is needed. Okay? So he's responsible for that. So responsible for product vision, definitely, right? So he's the one who understands the strategy of the company, right? What is the strategy? What is the vision, right? What are the goals, right? And he aligns that to the team, right? So he's the person who understands, who has the whole vision of the company. Okay, constantly reprioritizes the product backlog. So he's the owner of the product backlog, keeps constantly revisiting and updating. Okay, final, and he also he's the arbitrator of the final requirement questions, right? Any questions the team has, so he needs to answer, right? The team should not go to the stakeholder, team should not go to the end user. So product owner should have all the answers, right? It is his job to get all the answers to the team. He can decide when to release, what to release. Okay, the team might have built 10 features. If the product owner feels that only 5 I'm going to release this time, it is his job. Okay, once you build the product, it is your work is done. So it is the product owner or release manager who will decide when to release. Okay, decide whether to continue development. So product owner also has authority to stop a sprint. Nobody else has the authority to stop a sprint. Usually, I mean, I have never seen in my career that a sprint is stopped in between, but that also can be done, right? What could happen that maybe maybe half of the team is sick, right? Maybe half of the team is not doing well, right? Or maybe completely the value is gone, right? Completely the feature what we're building is of no use, right? You realize that in between. You can stop the sprint and you can kind of reset that sprint and start a new sprint later. Okay, so that can also be done. Okay, he has a leadership role, definitely, right? It's a very, very important role, very difficult role. Okay, so product owner is the most difficult role in Scrum. Okay, because he needs to understand, he needs to do the market analysis, what people want, right? What customers want, right? Lot of analysis goes into this, right? A lot of data is needed, right? What features to build, right? What would people like, right? All of that, right? So it's a very tough role. Last role is Scrum Master. Yeah, so it's a very tricky role. People think that most of the people think, what does Scrum Master do, right? But there's a lot that Scrum Master has to do. Okay, first of all, he has to make sure that people understand Scrum, right? People understand Scrum methodology, right? People are following, right? And everybody should understand. Okay, sometimes even product owners don't understand Scrum. They might be good at building, writing stories, good at kind of coming up with good features, but they don't understand Scrum. Okay, that's what I've seen. So the Scrum Master should make sure that product owner understands Scrum, the team understands Scrum, the organization understands Scrum, right? And everybody is following it. Okay, and he needs to make sure that the roadblocks are removed, right? He needs to make sure that the team is protected. So basically, he's a protector of the team, right? Nobody's getting pulled into some other work, right? So he needs to kind of protect the team and make sure that team is does not have any roadblocks. Okay, I'm not gonna go through all the points because we're short on time, right? So basically promotes improved engineering practices, right? So it's the job of the Scrum Master, right? The team is following the best of the engineering practices, right? If team needs any training, so it's Scrum Master who needs to arrange for it, right? He need not do the training, but he needs to get the right training resources, right? Get them help, right? Because he needs to make sure that team is growing, right? They're building more skills, right? They are becoming more independent, right? So, and removes any impediments, right? Any roadblocks, right? This is also a leadership role. All three are leadership roles, right? Team as a whole is a leadership role. Product owner is a leadership role, and Scrum Master is a leadership role. And there's one more thing I want to call it: product owner, product manager, right? There's a slight difference, but this is interchangeably used: product owner and product manager. But SAFe defines it a little more clearly, right? SAFe is again another framework, right? SAFe says that product owner is below product manager. Product manager is basically at program level, right? He will be defining the program features, right? A product owner is at the sprint level, right? Product manager defines what needs to go into the product at high level. So whereas product owner works with the team, right? Helps them create the sprint backlog, pre-planners at the sprint level. Whereas product manager is little above product owner. Okay, any questions before we get into a little complex topic of story pointing? Saif, how are we doing on time? Is it okay to continue? I'm not sure if Saif is there.
How much time do you still need more?
This could take 10 minutes, Saif, if I go
Yeah,
faster.
that's good. Yeah.
Right? Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah. So, story pointing, right? It's a very, I would say it's a complex topic if people have not done it. If people have done it, it's not very complex. If people are used to it, it is simple. If people are not used to it, it becomes little complex, right? So as we done in other methodologies like waterfall and all, the way estimation was done, right? You had different approaches like top down or bottom up, right? Where the project manager was responsible for estimating, right? He used to work with the team or work with the experts, right? And they used to give him kind of estimates for individual features or individual topics, and he used to collate them and create that big estimation. He used to come up with the estimation for the whole project, right? He used to tell that this project is going to take 3 months or 120 days or whatever it is, right? So it was his job, right? How estimation is done in Scrum and Agile. Okay, that's what we're going to learn here. Story pointing, right? So we put points to stories. Okay, we give a point. So we're going to see how it is done, right? So basically, story points are units of measure for expressing an estimate to do that story or to do that product backlog item, right? So basically, we give a point, and that point includes everything to be done for that story. Okay, it is development, design, testing, right? All of that is inclusive in that point that we give. Okay, it's a complete work to be done for that product backlog item or the story. Okay. So there are a lot of techniques. The most used techniques is called relative estimation, right? The reason why it is used is it is easy to relate and group items than giving absolute estimation, right? Absolute estimation is an old estimation technique where we tell that this is going to take these many days, these many hours. Okay. So how relative estimation works is you pick up a item, okay, which you feel is a medium-sized item, okay, medium-sized story, right? Like this, right? Medium-sized dog. And you compare other items to that medium-sized story. Okay. So if you pick this pick this dog as medium size, right? You can easily tell this is smaller than this, right? And you can easily tell this is larger than this and it's extra large than this, right? So that's how you group them, and you compare by comparing or grouping them, you kind of come up with the estimation. Okay. So relative estimation removes emotional attachment, right? So estimation is a lot of basically emotions, right? I mean, if you remember older days, right? People always used to crib, right? Oh, we estimated less, right? Our manager estimated less, right? So that kind of attachment, emotional attachment, is not there when you do relative estimation, because it's just points, right? You're given small, medium, large, or you're given like 2, 3, or 5, or 13 points, right? We're going to talk about it in a later slide, right? The Fibonacci series, right?
Sorry to interrupt. So when we decide something is a medium, so that it is like everybody agrees that this is a medium one, then we take that as a reference and then cross relate it.
Yes, I'm going to talk that in the later slide. Okay, I'll explain you the detailed example. Okay, how do you do that? Okay, so estimate, again, very point is estimate includes everything. Okay, this design, document, coding, testing, whatever it takes to do that. Okay, you shouldn't say that I'll have a development 5 points, I'll have QA 3 points. You should not do that. Okay, it's 1 point that is given. Everybody agrees, right? Our whole team agrees that okay, it will take this much time to complete this story. Okay, and story point is not equal to time, right? Of old project managers, right? Stakeholders always want to equate it to time, right? We should say that no, story point is not equal to time. but later we'll tell you velocity. At that time, probably you can compare that to time. Okay, for example, right? Maybe if you work 4 or 5 months, you know what is the velocity. Maybe it's 100 is the velocity, right? 100 story points a team can do in a sprint. So probably if you want to relate it to 100 points is equal to 2 weeks, you can do it later. But in the beginning, you can never compare and you can never come up with time, okay, to story. So relative estimation, right? There are different techniques we do. One is called planning poker, right? Where you can download a game. So you get the game in the app store or the Android app store, right? So where people download this and we use Fibonacci series, okay, to keep it simple, because otherwise somebody will say 4, somebody might say 8, right? So it's better to use Fibonacci series, right? Which is 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, right? So that series, so that people can give similar numbers, right? So what happens is you show your story and you ask people to point it, right? So somebody might show it as 3, somebody might. So if I'm going to explain about medium in the next slide. Okay? So here I'm just giving an example, right? So you've picked up a story. So somebody might. So if you say 10 people and 9 people in the team, right? So one person shows 3, another person shows 8. So 5 of them show 5. Okay. So you're seeing that slightly the agreement is towards 5. But you're going to ask the person who showed 3, why do you think it is 3? So if you can explain why do you think it's simple, so people might agree or people might not agree. And you're going to ask the person who showed 8, right? You then he says that why he thinks that it's complex, right? He can explain, right? And if that explanation is better, the people who had said 3 and 5 might say that, oh, we didn't think about this scenario, right? So they all might agree and go with 8, right? So basically, you again ask them to kind of brainstorm and come back, right? It takes some time in the beginning, right? If you're pointing for the first time, a lot of disagreements will be there. But once you keep this habit, keep doing it, it becomes easier, right? And people all might agree with 5, okay? And all might agree with 3. So another estimation technique is t-shirt size, where you kind of group them as small, medium, and large. You're not giving points, you're just putting them as small, medium, large, right? In the sprint, you might say, I want to do 4 mediums, 3 smalls, and 4 larges, like that, okay? So let's see how to do estimation first time, right? If you've never done estimation, right? The easiest way is, right? So first you define, okay? So you define that these are my story points, right? 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and 1 and 2 is extra small. Right? This is just a table of definition, okay? Small means 3. If a story gets classified as small, it's going to be 3-pointer. If it is medium, it's 5-pointer. Large is 8, extra large is 13, huge is 21. You should avoid 13s and 21. At least 21s you should never have. If you have a story just 21 points, you should break that into smaller stories. Even 13 is advisable to break it into smaller stories. Okay. So let's say, right, pick a medium-sized story that is already done. So if you already done a sprint, see, first time you did a sprint, right, you didn't do story point. It's better to take a story that's already done because people understand the complexity of that, right? You pick a story that is done and which is a medium size, right? Ask the team to pick up a medium sized story, right? If they say pick a story A, right? They say that this seems to be a medium sized story, okay? Just a relative comparison, right? And then you start comparing that story with other stories, right? You might have another 5 stories, right? Pick up story B and ask the team whether it is bigger than A or smaller than A. So they say that it's smaller than A, then you can put it as a small or extra small, right? And if they say that compared to the story, no, this is bigger than the story A, then you can put it in the bucket of medium or large. Okay. Again, people have large or extra large, right? If it is greater than medium, right? That is how you start estimating first time when you've never done it, right? So pick a medium-sized story that people agree, right? Most of the people agree that this seems to be medium-sized story. Okay. You might have again challenge that, I mean, UI and backend or DevOps might have different standards, right? It's okay to have a DevOps story as a medium and UI story as a medium for comparison. Okay. You might, because DevOps work could be entirely different than UI and backend, right? So if they want to choose a different medium story, that's okay to start with, okay? And then you have a UI and backend person choose a medium story and compare and come up with the points. Does it make sense?
The story points is a one-time task, or we have to do all the sprints?
Yeah, you have to do it all the sprint. Usually it is done in the grooming session, right? We talked about, right? Look at meeting a grooming session, but it needs to be completed in the sprint planning. Okay. So you might have put some points in the grooming, but on the planning day, right, you have to decide and finalize. It is not advised to change points in between the sprint, but in the worst case scenario, you can do it. Okay. For example, you started a story as a 5 point, but in the middle of the sprint, you realize, no, it is really complex. What I estimated was wrong. It's okay to change from 5 to 8, but it's not advisable. And if you have to reduce, you don't have to reduce. So if the team feels that it was just a 3-pointer, leave it at 5. It's okay. Okay. You should not reduce the points. But if it needs to be increased, you can increase it. Okay. But you shouldn't make it a habit. Okay.
Okay. Is there any limits of story points to take up in a single sprint? Suppose if you have more sprint backlogs, then story points will get increased, right? So can we?
Yeah. Sorry. Start with less always. Okay. You should not pull a lot of stories in the first sprint and second sprint. Okay. As you go, you will know what is my velocity. I'm going to talk about that in the next slide quickly, right? So start with always less. Okay. It's better to take less and deliver more, right? So if you take more points, so for example, say you have a team with 8 people and you pull in 100 points, right? In the first sprint, you never knew how much you can do, right? So it's better to start with less. And as you go, you will know what is the velocity. Okay. So what is velocity? I'm going to get into the next slide with that, right? Velocity is the measure of amount of work the team can do in a sprint. Okay. Whole team can do how many points, but it's very important that story which is done. Okay. Done with the definition of done met. Okay. So it is the number of story points a team did in a sprint. Okay. That is called velocity. Okay. So example, if a team has done stories with say 0.258, 253, that means the velocity of that team in that sprint is 25 points. Okay. So here in this example, you have a team which has done 5 sprints, right? So they plan to do 20 in the first sprint. They did 15. In the second sprint, they planned only 10. They were a little more conservative and they did 15. Another sprint, they planned to do 25. They did 20. 30, they planned 32. They did 25. Planned, they did 25. So if you take the average velocity of this comes to around 21. So if you ask me, this team should take only 20 points going forward. Okay, they should take 20 and try to do how much they can, right? That's how you pull in story. Okay. So velocity is a very key metric. Most of the stakeholders ask for this. What's the velocity of your team? Okay. But you cannot decide the velocity with only 1 or 2 sprints. You should at least run 4 or 5 sprints. Then you can get your average velocity and then you can tell my velocity is say 20 points. I'm just giving an example, right? Usually what I've seen is that, you cannot compare velocity with different teams. Okay. It is your team's velocity, right? You might have defined points differently. You might have defined, different criteria, right? How you point also is different for every team, right? So you cannot compare, say, in one product team A to another product team A, okay? That those guys are doing 100 points. Maybe they pointed more, right? Maybe they point everything as 8 and 13, right? Whereas we pointed as 3 and 5, right? So you cannot do comparison between 2 teams, okay? It is your team's velocity and this is your average velocity. That's how you tell, okay, to your management. Usually it takes 4 or 5 sprints to arrive at velocity, right? But it's a very key term, right? Everybody asks about what is your velocity, but you cannot get to it in sprint 1, 2. Okay, it will take some time to clearly know what's the velocity of the team. And again, if you're changing the team, your velocity is going to change. Okay. Another interesting point is in COVID, the velocities of the teams increased during COVID, right? When the lockdown started. So one of our managers from Sapient had written an article LinkedIn about it. Okay. So we compared many of the clients we were working with. Almost everywhere the velocity increased. The reason for that, people didn't have anything else to do. They were sitting and doing more work at home. Okay. So it kind of stayed for a few months like that, and then it became normal. Okay. So velocity could change for a lot of reasons. That if the team is changing, right? If some resource leaves or you add 4 more resources, right? Probably velocity could change. But if you add more resources, velocity is going to dip first. Okay. You can, because there'll be again that storming or norming phase that will come, right? So you cannot, you should not remove. You can add people if needed, but you should not simply remove and kind of change the team. That is going to impact the velocity. Okay, with that we come to end. Okay, quickly I want to touch. Okay, sorry, I think we spent too much time on the deck itself. Okay, so what I would suggest. Any questions before we go to what we can do, right? How can we get into the Scrum Master product owner careers?
What in a case where a person has been newly joined, how do we go about it? Because obviously there will be a slop in the, there is a time to pick up and start delivering it. So how do we manage that?
Yeah, see, it depends. So you already have a team, you're adding one person, you're telling, is it?
Correct.
Yeah, see, you should have the environment for them to quickly learn and gel with the team. Okay, the Scrum Master and the product owner See, if you already have a team, you should have good documents, okay, right? They can go through, right? So first few days, right? It's first of all, it's gonna bring down velocity, as I said, right? Because other people should help that person, right? So that person might be creating that velocity dip, but after that, after he starts performing, the velocity is gonna increase. So it's very common, okay, right? When you add people, velocity could change, right, of the whole team also, right? Or at least it could remain the same for a few days because that person is not contributing as much, and but slowly it's gonna come.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
So in the perspective of a growth within the organization, how should the Scrum team member should look at? So what would be his next role?
See, if you are a developer, right, you're definitely gonna grow in that, right? Because you're learning. The best part is that you're working with a team which is cross-functional, right? You have different skilled people. When you work in a very good cross-functional team, you actually get to learn more technologies. You get to learn more stuff because you're working closely, collaboratively with the other teams, right? So as a developer, you're gonna go in your own path, okay? So see, you might have you say if somebody is a developer, right? Maybe a UI React developer, right? So he'll learn more and he'll go in that part of senior developer, right? And maybe architect or lead like that. He'll still grow in that path. There's nobody is stopping him from going in his path he wants to go. See, somebody wants to be in the team only, work as senior developer or lead, it's okay. And if somebody wants to go to architect stream, that's okay.
Okay. So
maybe I didn't answer your question. I didn't. Can you maybe ask?
No,
me a little?
even I'm confused as well. So because like in a waterfall, they had a very hierarchical level. Junior software engineer will report or something, that senior software engineer, team lead, assistant manager, senior, and it goes on. So, but in a structure of a Scrum, the team is doing its work independently. So, but how does one can and there is a team lead within the team as well. But what is the next level for a team lead after that? So what should he look forward to? Because as you were saying that there is no delivery manager and things like that position within the Scrum environment.
Yeah, but still people have delivery managers, right? It doesn't mean that because Scrum is telling people are checking off delivery manager. Those roles are still available, but probably what they work on and maybe their roles and responsibilities have changed a bit. Still, you will have delivery managers. So mostly delivery managers will be managing many Scrum teams, right? Multiple Scrum teams, right? You still need people with like architect, senior architect, enterprise architect level, right? So you still need those people, but they'll be working at a high level and kind of defining the product features, right? High level, they'll be working with product managers, right? Or higher level people. There's still that is needed, okay? Now, it doesn't mean that everybody is their roles are becoming obsolete. It's not true. Whereas SAFe, right? SAFe defines that very clearly, okay? If you look at SAFe, right, say Scaled Agile Framework, they still have architects, they still have delivery managers. That's why most of the people are adapting SAFe now than Scrum. SAFe is similar to Scrum, right? All the concepts remain the same, but they have very clear hierarchy for technical team and non-technical team as well. Even program managers, release managers, everybody come into picture. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So same question in different words. Who can prefer to be a Scrum Master and who can prefer to be a product owner?
See, if somebody has worked in a domain or in a product for a long time, right? He can switch to product owner role easily, okay? But if you are a new person, the product owner needs to have very deep understanding of domain and the product, okay? Right? Because he needs to understand end-to-end picture of the product, right? What the customers want, what the clients want, right? So he can move the product on, right? Scrum Master is mostly project managers are taking up Scrum Master roles, right? That's what I've seen, right? Or even QA leads, right? Or QA people with QA background are going towards Scrum, or QA can also go towards product, or any BAs can easily go to product owner roles, okay?
Because QS might, usually they have end-to-end product knowledge. So they can be more focused on product owner.
Yes. I've seen that many QA managers, QA leads have gone to product management roles. It's easier for them, okay? So there are two. Okay, it's like if you see, if you already are working on it, I mean, you don't have to do certifications. Okay, it's not needed, but it's good to have certifications in either Scrum Master or Product Owner, right? So it's good to have preferred. There are two companies. Okay, one called Scrum Alliance and Scrum Org. So both are good. Okay, Scrum Alliance gives CSM for Scrum Master, CSM certification, certified Scrum Master, advanced certified Scrum Master, right, and certified Scrum Professional. For product owners, it gives CSPO, ASPO, CSPO. Okay, there is one more company called Scrum Org. Both are good. Okay, both are created by there are two owners of Scrum. So one person has created Scrum.org, another person has created Scrum Alliance. Right, if you want to go to Scrum Org, it is called CSPO, Certified Scrum Professional. Okay, so then there is a product owners training certifications also. I would say it's better to do them. Little costly, around 15 to 20,000, but you get a better picture. And if you have certifications, it's always good to land jobs. Okay, a lot of Scrum Master roles open, a lot of product owner roles. Right, if you see any company, there's a lot of product owner roles open. Okay, if somebody has a good knowledge of domain and some good knowledge of product, it's easy for them to get into a product owner role. And Scrum Master also, there's a lot of roles, but Scrum Master roles, you have to keep evolving and keep learning more stuff. Okay, Scrum Master roles are mostly temporary. Temporary means you have to take a team, right, implement Scrum there and move on to another team. Okay, if the team is good, the team has adapted and they're doing good job, probably you can take up another team or you move to a different area, right? Scrum Master role is mostly still evolving and you have to keep learning more stuff, right, and keep on moving between different teams. But the product owner would be stuck to, I mean, kind of can stick to one product and continue to work there for a longer time. Any questions? Any?
You talked about the certification of a Scrum Alliance here. So, like, do they give some video tutorial or something which we should be going through and then give an exam or something? So in depth,
Yes,
if you can cover.
Yeah, so see, Scrum Alliance, usually you have to take 2 days of course from the certified, it's called CST, okay, certified Scrum trainer. Okay, so you have to go to a trainer, take 16 hours of training, and then only you can give exam. Whereas the scrum.org does not require you to have 2 days of training. You can read yourself. There are some materials available on their site only. Okay, and you can go and let me show you that. So scrum.org. Right. So this site, okay, you can go and take your certification on your own. Okay, so you can go and say selling, learn, buy. Okay, so you can buy, so $150 for certification, right? You can buy that certification and give the exam, read yourself and give yourself. Whereas Scrum Alliance is expecting that you take 16 hours of training from a CST and then you do the exam.
Okay, so for a learning, they have a different price tags, and buy like for certification.
No. So learning, see, most of the materials you can easily get. So if you go and search for PSM, you get a lot of free material. Okay, that you can go through. At Udemy, right? If you have some courses which are kind of, sometimes you get for 400, 500 all courses. Okay, at the end of the month, every time they'll run some discounts, right? That time you can go and buy a course, read it through it, right? If you read for say 1 week, 2 weeks, that's good enough. Okay, and you can go and give this exam by just paying $150. Okay, whereas if you go to the other one, they'll usually charge between 15 to 20,000, but that includes the exam fee if you go to the Scrum Alliance. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Scrum Alliance exam fee is only $100, but they expect that you go through the training. Okay, so that $100 you cannot directly pay and take the exam, but you have to go through a trainer.
Okay.
And that guy will buy and give it to you the exam link.
And what about product owner track?
Same it is in scrum.org. It is you don't have to have training. If you think that you are ready to take the exam, you can buy the exam and do it. Whereas Scrum Alliance, you have to go through that 2 days of training and take the exam.
I mean, for product owner track also the same thing, the same assessment what you're showcasing right now. Should we?
No. So let me go to that, right? So there's product owner, right? So product owner is different. It's called PSPO here, right? PSPO1, PSPO2. If you go here, right, product owner track is different in Scrum Alliance, Alliance. Okay, Scrum Alliance is a different. It has a different track for product owner. They also have for developers and all. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other thing? Any questions?
Yeah. So you are saying about the SAFe framework of Agile.
Yeah.
So are there any certification in the SAFe?
Yeah, they have a lot, but it's little costlier. Okay, it costs around 50,000. Okay, and that's only for 1 year valid. So I would not suggest you to take that unless if the company is doing it, right? Like for me, for Sapient, company was doing those. I did 2 certifications from SAFe, right? If you do it through company, it's much cheaper. You will have trainers within the company. It costs only $100, and that mostly company will reimburse. Okay, but if you are trying to do it from outside, each course is 50,000 rupees, and it's only 1 year valid. Don't go for SAFe, I would say.
Does these Scrum certifications has validity?
So Scrum Alliance is 2 years. Scrum ORG is for lifelong. That PSM, right? Where you don't have to do training. Scrum.org, right? What I talked about, PSM1. That is for lifelong. This is for 2 years. Scrum Alliance is 2 years.
So which one do you recommend, sir?
Do PSM. Okay. If you can read through, right? Go through. So see, whatever deck I've given covers most of the stuff for Scrum Master. Okay. You can listen to this video and go through Udemy course, right? I would say. Read through Google, right? If you can prepare well, you can give that PSM easily. Shouldn't take more than 2 weeks for you, for anybody. Do PSM because it's lifelong. It's only $150 per exam. But if you are not confident, go through this Scrum Alliance. This is all, both certifications are same value, but this will expire in 2 years. You have to renew again, paying $100 otherwise. Anything else?
And is it necessary that you have to do the PSO 1 first and then go to 2 or 3? Or
Yeah. There's the prerequisites. 2 for 2, 1 is prerequisite. Yeah, it's
Okay.
everywhere like that. Yeah.
Okay, fine. All
So
right.
even for ASM, right? ACSM, the prerequisite is CSM. Right here also, right? Yeah, ACSPO. You need to have CSPO. Same in the other one also, Scrum.org also.
Okay, so my question is, I have done a product management course where I got the certification from Duke. Now I have the management understanding of a product management. But if I have to get into the nitty-gritties of a product owner role, I think I have to deep dive into certification. That's what my thought was. So what do you recommend? I mean, should I go for the certification because I have the understanding of the concepts very well?
Yeah.
Or should I stick with my own certificate of product owner, or I mean product management lead?
See, if you already have a certificate, right? If you understand it, if you get a chance to work in real life experience, I would say do that and then go for certification. Right? If you want to learn, you will not learn a lot in certification. It's just 2 days of course, right? If you go with the Scrum Alliance. Yeah.
That's understandable because if I look at my current role, I'm already into the product role. I have expertise in a particular domain for a long time. Now I'm doing the in and out of most of the things with that product. Now for that, from a management perspective, I went to this Udemy and upgrade stuff like that and did a certification from there where I've been certified as a product management guy.
Yeah.
Now, yes, I understood that where I am certified as a management person. Now, when I look at this particular certification like PSPO1 or PSPO2, it's coming into the same of that where this stuff I learned it as a basics there, but I never did a certification. Now, do you recommend me to do a certification in this, or what do you think? Just stick on with that. That should be good.
Yeah, so it's not mandatory, but it's good to have. Okay, right? Yeah, it's not mandatory, but it's good to have. I mean, you can do PSPO, right? Or if you want to go a little more higher, there are some bigger institutions also who give the certifications. Okay, like I have joined a IAM course. Okay, on product management. Okay?
Yes.
So so that also you can do, but yeah, if it depends on how much you want to spend, right? How much you can spend, right?
Okay.
So yeah, but these are good to start with. These are world renowned certifications, right? Everywhere they have value. Okay.
Valid. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Anybody?
Assalamualaikum.
Alaikum salam.
So if anybody is starting from medium scale company where all these processes were not followed, it was just start off the code, start doing and things. So for those kind of candidates, where do you think we need to start from? And because we are not into the process, we know how to do it, but
yeah, then I would say go do CSM, okay? Because you will get a good trainer, right? Go join a good course, training, this one, right? You'll learn it. They'll do practically everywhere. That's what I've been seeing mostly, okay? Like something else, Star Agile. I did my CSM from Star Agile. So you'll have a very good training course. You'll understand all the details and you'll get a certificate also. Start from there and then you try to come and talk to your company and stakeholders. They'll listen to you better.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, bye. Over to you.
So, Jazakumullah, Shams bhai. It was really nice and eye-opening for many of us. Learned so many new things. MashaAllah. So, do we have any last question, or maybe we can close with this?
Just one thing, I joined in late, so we still have the recording done, right? We can watch it.
Yeah,
later.
inshallah, recording will be available at the tinyurl.com/mfird. So I'll post that in the chat box. You can get the recording there, inshallah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.